Happy Tuesday. Welcome to this week's edition of My Chronic Migraine Life. Earlier this year, in Season 2, Episode 15, in an entitled video called What Can I Do For You?, I alluded to a rebound migraine I was having at the time. Spoiler alert, in that video, I struggled during the day to fight off a migraine that I had been having and dealing with, continuing to do the things, small and big, that I wanted to do during the day. Eventually, I finally accepted the help that I was being offered all day, but had refused because I was being stubborn, and finally relented and took care of myself and my migraine so that it would finally break. On that particular day, I was having a rebound migraine, and I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about what that really means. So, in life, there are no real reasons or known causes for why people like me, who went from experiencing a couple of really severe headaches a year to all of a sudden the very next year being a person that had 25 plus days in a row of severe migraines. And that's really the same migraine every single day, 24 hours a day, without a break, one after another. So it's continued actually one migraine. There's not a lot of research done. There's not a lot of money behind it. And so no one really knows what causes that in the first place. But there is a little more research, if you will, behind rebound migraines. A rebound migraine, is implicitly caused by the overuse of medication. And now we're not talking about just any medication. We're talking about two types, really. NSAIDs, which is an anti-inflammatory. So it's naproxen, it's ibuprofen, it's Motrin, whatever the over-the-counter equivalent is. I've never really been an over-the-counter type of girl, but whatever those medicines are. It's not Tylenol, it's not aspirin. The other kind is a triptan. A triptan is what I refer to in all of my videos and all of my blogs as a pain pill, because for me, that's what it is. But I want to be clear that it's not a narcotic, it's not an opioid, it's not Oxycontin, it's not any of those guys. It is specifically to treat the onset of a migraine and works better if you take it faster rather than later. You can actually end up taking it too late and be on a roller coaster ride of pain that you will have to just endure because you took your medicine too late or it's not working properly. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so when I first started seeing the neurologist I see now at Montefiore's Headache Center in the Bronx, I was 2011, and I was at the I was building up to the worst months and moments of my life in terms of chronic migraines. It was very, very shortly thereafter where I experienced that 25-day migraine, but maybe a month or two prior to this, I first met her. And I was explaining, I got a full physical exam. I was explaining what I was feeling, what I was being treated with by the current neurologist, and all the different things. And during that course of that long conversation, I found out what a rebound migraine was for the very first time. All I knew is that the medication I was taking daily. Now, at that time, I would be on several daily medications to try to prevent the migraine. I was still breaking through. My migraines were still breaking through and still just as powerful as ever. When that happened, I had a game plan, right? I was to take an anti-inflammatory. If it didn't break after that, then I would take the so-called pain pill. If it didn't break after that, I would even take a muscle relaxer at some point. 3 very powerful drugs in a short amount of time still didn't break my migraine. It didn't even take the intensity out of it. It didn't make all the other side effects that come with a migraine go away. And often when they would attack, I would be commuting to and from work or, always in the middle of something really important. And if you suffer from severe chronic pain the way that I did, you're always going to be in the middle. It's always going to be inconvenient because it's all of the time. And so taking these drugs and their side effects, it still wasn't breaking. But what I learned from that first doctor's office visit was that by taking these medications over and over and over again in a desperate attempt to get relief, not knowing any better, I was actually creating a bigger migraine for myself. Because now not only was I dealing with my actual chronic migraine, I was getting a rebound migraine on top of it. And that's probably what led to that 25-day episode. And it was severe and it was awful, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Because it's this vicious cycle where, right, like, you can't stop taking the medicine because the headache just gets that much worse, but then the medicine is causing another headache. And I use the term headache, and I mean migraine. And it's like, what do you do? How do you get off the roller coaster? Really more like a Ferris wheel, because it never really eased. It just was round and round and round and round, and it's mind-boggling. So a rebound migraine is defined as, prolonged overuse of medication. When you're dealing with a chronic migraine, overuse is hard to define. Sorry, I had cramp in my hand. My doctor and the Mayo Clinic, apparently, I did a little bit of research after speaking with her just to try to get some facts for you guys, is really, the Mayo Clinic says it's 10 to 15 days in a row, a month. My doctor feels like it could be about that time, maybe a little longer. But here's the thing. For me, it can be even less. The Mayo Clinic has defined a rebound migraine as a condition that primarily targets, like 99.9% of the time, affecting people that have headache disorders, specifically chronic migraine disorders. And that doesn't surprise me in the least. We are typically the people that are using the tripans and anti-inflammatories on a regular basis, if not a daily basis or a several times a day basis, to try to survive. And this is the thanks that we get. Up until recently, and all the injections you probably see commercials for, and Botox, which was a happy accident, there were no real migraine drugs. We were taking drugs either to prevent or treat a migraine that were really designed for other diseases. So the fact that they don't work 100% and that you have to combine drugs and take them over and over and over again to sort of retrain your body is not a surprise to me. But we're not here for that. I'm here to educate you about what a rebound migraine is and how to treat it. Okay, so how do you know if you're having a rebound migraine, if it feels exactly the same? Knowing my body and realizing what's been happening around me. Okay, so since that first doctor's office visit, I'm sure that I've had rebound migraines on a handful of occasions, either knowing it or not knowing it. But most recently, I become hyper aware of them, let's say, or trying to be hyper aware of them, not to induce them myself. So at that very early stage in my migraine journey, I didn't even have a trigger. A trigger being what would bring a migraine on, make it worse. And sight, smell, all that kind of stuff. It was everything. I was in such a state of overactive migraines that my poor body, everything, even the things that were good for it were a flare, caused a migraine. But after several years, once I got my body sort of back into a spot where it was less inflamed, I could recognize triggers that still bother me to this day. The smell of cigarette smoke is one of the worst. Flashing lights. That balsam smell, which is very popular this time around this season, like that. I refer to it as that green candle, that smells like Christmas trees, but not really, but like perfumey smell. Torturous. For me, it was never really food. I always try to cut my salt and stuff like that, and the obvious things that are not good for you, but I have to stay hydrated, and occasionally I need caffeine, but it wasn't related to any of those things. Earlier this year, I had hurt my foot at the gym, back when you could go to the gym and be safe and live in a regular world, back then. And I went to the doctor after it persisted for months, and was given a course of ibuprofen. Now, that for me is a red alarm, and 2 videos ago, in License to Kill, I spoke about, making sure every doctor you go to is aware of your chronic migraines and all of the other things that are wrong with you, whether they're big or small, severe or in remission or whatever it is. And I told this doctor about my migraines, but we always have to be our best advocates. He wanted me to take, I don't know, 800 milligrams, maybe 500 milligrams, I don't remember, of ibuprofen several times a day, just for like a week to see if I could get the inflammation down in my foot and get the pain to stop. Now, every fiber of my being was screaming, this is a red flag for my head. And I was worried about it. But it had been such a long time since I had rebound migraines, and my head is really doing phenomenal. It's like the wood, knock on wood. And so while I knew it might trigger a migraine, I wasn't really particularly worried about it. I'm on no more daily preventative medicine. I solely treat Botox and an occasional pain pill and maybe a handful of anti-inflammatories during the month to treat whatever migraine feelings come about. But I thought I could handle it. It's one of those things where, like, if you don't really learn your lesson, you're destined to repeat it. It's that exactly. And so I got overconfident in my head's ability to cope. And so I took it, and my foot started to feel really good. It was over the summer when this happened, and I was at a cousin's pool, and I was feeling really good. I was relaxed. I was having a good time. I was hydrated. I had eaten, I had done all the things, that my migraine body would want. And yet all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I could feel it coming on. And it wasn't like, ooh, I think I'm getting a migraine. It was like, oh my God, a Mack truck is about to hit my body and I can't handle it. And all of a sudden I was like, what the hell? And I don't know how to explain it. For me, I know it feels like craving drugs. I have this dialogue with myself, like, out of habit. The things that you learn to do when you're in pain or like just trying to get through a day. I talk to myself, but out loud, no matter who's around me. And I'm like, you're not getting any drugs today, so just get over it and move on. We have things to do. Or I gave you a pill, relax, you got what you wanted. I don't know if it's just out of habit or I feel like it works or it's one of those things. But for me, I know what it is. I know when my head is craving medicine. And I don't mean craving like, oh, I feel like taking this pill because it makes me feel so great. But it's like an addiction. And I'm using that word very, very carefully and very, very lightly because it's a craving. And while your head is giving you pain, real pain, I want to be very clear, it is incredibly real pain. Sometimes often worse than the migraines I would get on a regular basis with the Botox. In order to feed its need for that medication, for whatever that does to your head. Now, I'm not getting high off this medication. Like I said, it's not a narcotic. I'm not feeling like invincible. Sometimes it doesn't even take away the pain when I'm treating a rebound migraine, but it wants it. My head wants the medication. And so it will trick you by giving you a very real migraine into giving it what it wants. The problem with that is that you can't keep doing that, right? So you have to pick your battles. On this day, I knew what it was and I knew what it wanted. But because at that time my body was reacting to the ibuprofen, I wouldn't give it that. I gave it a Trypan instead, triptan, for my migraine because it was getting so severe so fast, I knew I had to treat it. There are a lot of days where I debate what I should take, if I should take anything, can I fight it off? For the express purpose of trying not to create a rebound migraine, or I took a pain pill last week, and I'm trying to count them. There were many, many years where I literally counted how many pain pills I took a month for this purpose. And so I took it. And it was the right thing to do, and it stopped my headache. And the next few days, I had pain in my head, but I could manage without anything. And eventually it went away. Now, while that was one instance for me, my body is sort of trained now. I have really good muscle memory when it comes to medication and my migraines. My body sort of knew that was it. I drew a line in the sand. But a rebound migraine, even if it's broken, can come back. And it can come back with a vengeance. And it can last days, even up to a week. And these are the things that I've done to deal with it. Depending on the medication you're rebounding from, I would typically do the opposite. Now, I want to be clear here. I am not giving you medical advice. I am not a doctor. I am just explaining what it is like to live through a rebound migraine and how I have treated them. Always, always consult your physician before you take any medication, especially if it's not prescribed specifically to you. I can't stress that enough. So, like I said, my body was reacting to the ibuprofen, so I went in the other direction, and vice versa would apply. But at all costs, I really try not to take anything, if I can. I would even take maybe a Tylenol if I could just feel pressure or ache or whatever it was to try to ease my body out of it that wasn't severe. My body's been through a lot of trauma. It's been through a lot of medication and a lot of things. I feel like I'm more sensitive now to medication than I ever was, and I was really sensitive to it. So, I just try to take it easy. What I really need to do sometimes is just take a break and sleep. Get an ice pack on my head, shut all the lights off, make it really cold. Those are the things that my body always really likes. When I was really at my worst, sometimes laying back or closing my eyes would make me feel nauseous when I was in my head pain. So I would sometimes just bend over on a table or onto my bed, waist down, but keeping my head up. When I put my head below my heart, sometimes it makes my head pain throb. And so I would just stay in that stance, sort of bending over, leaning on something for a few minutes. I had this trick of taking my wrists and putting them under really, really running cold water in the bathroom sink. Sometimes that did it. Strange things. But if my pain was really going to go off the rails, I knew I had to treat it because not treating severe head pain is very dangerous, and I didn't want that either. Sometimes I would, make a big pot of coffee, and sometimes that would help. Sometimes sleep, if you can sleep, is really important because not sleeping feeds the migraine, and then, I've had migraines that used to wake me up in the middle of the night, and that's not fun. So if you sleep, if you can, make sure that you are staying hydrated no matter what and eating on a regular basis so that, all the other triggers that pertain to you and your regular migraine disease don't fall back into play for the rebounds. If it gets really bad and even you taking the pain pill and it's still not breaking, you have to call your doctor. For me, a worst case was always going on steroids. It didn't happen a whole lot. It was just a couple of days. Steroids give me insane insomnia, which I had already suffered from, but sometimes the steroid was strong enough just to break the cycle of this up and down and back and forth and just stop it cold. So you could reset your body and reset your brain and start over. Sometimes that's what it has to be. Unfortunately, a lot of times it just takes time. You just have to sort of go through the motions and, speak to your doctor, of course, see what they recommend for you. But if all else fails, even with the steroids, you have to give your body some time to catch up to what's happening to it, to realizing that it's not going to get the medication and it will withdraw. And sometimes going through a rebound migraine can feel like withdrawal. I've never taken any really serious drugs other than the stuff that was prescribed to me. And I had this one drug that was, in the anti-inflammatory family. And I was taking it, I think 5 or 10 milligrams daily, back when I took daily preventative medicines. And withdrawing from that drug, which I wish I could remember the name of, but I can't now, is what I feel like, not to be dramatic, but withdrawing from heroin must feel like. I was sweating and freezing and trembling. And I never felt worse in my life. I got migraines. I got all these things. And it was actually withdrawal. And that terrified me that I was on a drug that such a small dosage of, because I was on a lot of other drugs with the dosage way high. And this little itty bitty pill. And so, in a way, your body is kind of going through withdrawal. That's what a rebound migraine is trying to tell you. So, that in time, and if you can manage the symptoms, and they're not dangerous, you're not experiencing any new kinds of pains, you have spoken to your doctor, you know that you're doing the right thing for your head. You just have to go through it, and it sucks, and it is worse than having an actual migraine in the sense that you know that you can't treat it, you can't feed it, you can't feed the beast, but it will pass, and that's what I'm here to tell you. And you will learn from it, even if you had no other choice. You had to do what you had to do to solve whatever problem you were having, and it happened. It happens to all of us, chronic migraine folks, and so you just have to hang in there, and it will get better. And so I hope that this was illuminating for you, whether you've had a rebound migraine or not, or maybe this could even help you prevent one. And that is always my goal, is to not just speak to hear myself talk, but to actually educate and help others. And so I hope that this was a helpful video for you, and we will speak again next week.